Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today on YouTube Live where we are talking about fear of the unknown. I'm Dawn Wiggins, a licensed marriage and family therapist and your life and relationship strategist. We're talking today about fear of the unknown and specifically 4 things you can do to cope with the unknown. I'm really excited to discuss this topic because change is constant, and it's really strange that as humans we don't tend to cope very well with change. We like things to be very predictable and certain. When life is uncertain, it produces really, really intense levels of discomfort. But it's also one of those times where we have the greatest opportunity to change and grow. So I invite you to really stick around, watch the video, and learn about how you can turn your uncertainty into an opportunity. So if you're dealing with uncertainty in life and things seem to be changing and you're really, really uncomfortable, you probably are struggling in a relationship. You may be dealing with a health issue. Somebody may have recently passed away. You might be fearful about work. Any of these things would be totally normal to feel uncertain about. The thing that you need to know about the brain is that it's tricky. And when it doesn't know what's going to happen in the future, because it wants to know so desperately, it fills in the gaps of what it doesn't know with data from your past. Meaning, it could be taking experiences that you've had in the past, positive or negative, things you've seen other people experience in the past, positive or negative, even things you've watched on TV or in the movies or seen on your Facebook news feed, positive or negative. So it's really important to understand that your brain is actually skipping reality and placing a judgment on its anticipation of the future based on what it's seen from the past. And it's probably not accurate intel because there's no way to actually predict the future. So this is an opportunity for you to really harness your mind and say, I'm not going to let you trick me. I have solutions. And I'm going to share with you some of those solutions now. The first thing that I want you to do when you're dealing with the unknown or something in your life feels uncertain or it's changing is I want you to identify what your specific stressor is, and I want you to focus on what you can do to improve your life. So you may be super clear about what your stressor is, or you might just be feeling fearful and agitated in general and not sure. If you're not sure, then it's a great opportunity to talk to someone like a strategist, a coach, a therapist to get clear on what it is that has you feeling fearful or anxious. But if you are clear, I want you to identify a list of action steps you can take. So it's really important when you're looking at action steps to leave out anything that you don't have control over. So a lot of times people say to me when they're feeling uncomfortable with life or they're uncertain, well, I need so-and-so to just tell me what's going to happen for them so that I can be okay. Or I need so-and-so to just change what they're doing or the way they're acting so that I can be okay. This comes up a lot, especially with couples and family relationships and work and that kind of thing. But the reality is if you're waiting for your life to be okay based on what somebody else is doing or not doing, you're going to continue to suffer. So get clear about what you can do to create positive effect in your life when you've got a lot of change going on. This could be like exploring job opportunities or researching the best doctors out there, or hiring a coach or a strategist, or dumping love into a relationship and letting go of anger and resentment. Really taking a look at what you're contributing to your life in the uncertainty and clearing away or getting rid of the behavior or the things that aren't helping you in the moment. So that's the first thing to dealing with the unknown. The second thing that I want you to do when you're dealing with the unknown is I want you to make a conscious choice to face your issue head on. And that means not avoiding it, not shutting down, and not freaking out. Or if you do shut down and freak out, minimizing it to like 15 or 30 minutes, no longer than that. A lot of times as humans, when we are completely overwhelmed, the saying is fight, flight, or freeze, right? We have an emotional reaction where we run, or we get angry, or we shut down. And that happens very often when we don't know what to do, or we don't know what's going to happen, and we feel overwhelming fear. So I want you to make a conscious choice to not shut down when you are feeling overwhelmed or unsure, and I want you to decide to deal with your issue. So the first thing is identify your specific stressors and to take action if you can. And the second thing is to face your issue. I see a question in the chat box and I'm going to answer it. So let me read it to you. It says, is there such thing as doing too much research? When does it go from wanting the best doctor, coach, or therapist to making excuses like no one is good enough? That's a brilliant question. Thank you so much. So there is definitely too much research. And I'm going to share with you the theory of the good enough provider, doctor, therapist. There was some research done, I think in the 50s, that identified that really the most important factor to creating change in our lives is our own willingness and our own effort that we put in. Yes, it's really important to have a good strategist like myself or a really good doctor if you have a health problem, but the most important thing is that you have someone that's good enough to guide you through whatever it is that you're struggling with. They don't have to be the best. I understand that there's some scenarios if you have a super complex health issue or something that's really, really a niche problem, that yes, you might need to do a little extra research. And I totally support that. But generally speaking, too much research, sometimes we're putting too many negative things in our mind. So if you are researching solutions to a particular problem you're having or something that you're uncertain about, I want you to just be aware of the information that you're putting into your mind, because remember, the mind is going to populate then with whether it's positive or negative info. So if you're populating too much negative info, like for me, for instance, I have cluster headaches. It's a really, really rare diagnosis. Not a lot of people know what it is. And in the beginning, when I was really, really desperate for answers and solutions, I would always be searching everything that I could to get any information that was out there, because doctors don't really have a solution for cluster headaches. So I, was in a lot of on a lot of sites, signed up for a lot of forums and those kinds of things, and there were great communities out there of cluster headache sufferers, and it was amazing to see how many people out there were connected, because there's so few of us, but we're like all in there together. But what I found in the forums is that a lot of it was really heavy and dark. And there were a lot of people that were suffering so greatly that they didn't have the energy or the ability to add really positive things. And so I found that the more I went into those forums, the more I struggled to hold on to hope that there was a solution. Well, I stand here today before you and I still have cluster headaches, and I promise you I am okay and I am functioning. Most people who have cluster headaches are on disability, but I am a mom and a business owner, and I love my life, and I'm here talking to you, and I always believe there's a solution. So that's an example of where if you're doing a lot of research and you're noticing that it's really heavy or negative, step out or step aside so that you can really embrace the solutions and not just the problem. I see another question in the chat box that's an excellent question. How do you get the energy when you don't have it? That's an amazing question. How I do it is I ask for help. And that means leaning on people when I can't do it all by myself. So it also means being willing to say no to some of the things that I would usually say yes to. So it usually means cutting back on the demands I'm placing on myself, and then also asking for help. So what that does is it really allows me to, I go into power saving mode, like on the phone when the battery is really low. So you can still optimize whatever it is that you need to get done, which is typically self-care, because if I can't function, then I can't do any of these things, right? Then I can't show up for myself, I can't show up for my husband or my daughter or for you guys. So it's about pushing things off my plate and being okay with saying no, because it means I'm taking care of myself, and asking for help. So I heard a response in the chat box. I'm reading a response in the chat box that says that people feel like they don't want to bother others with their issue and stay in their own misery. I read a really great book this weekend. I wish I could remember the author and the title right now, but it talked about how as humans we like to reciprocate. And it's really, really important to us that we reciprocate favors. So if somebody does something for us, that we are compelled to do something for them. And a lot of times we want to over deliver because we feel so bad about receiving a favor that somebody's done for us. So know that that's a bias that our mind has. And a lot of the work that I like to do with people is teaching them that love in its purest form is not about reciprocation. Love in its purest form is about grace, meaning I'm giving this to you whether you earned it, you deserve it, whether you're going to give it back to me or not. I'm giving this to you because I am coming from my heart being wide open, and I'm not worried about whether or not you are going to give it back to me. I'm just going to trust that I'm going to get what I need if I ask for what I need from places where I know that there is pure love. So this is kind of starting to delve into a whole nother topic, but what I want you to know is that it is normal to worry about being a burden for others, on others, and I would just say to you that as long as your motive isn't to take advantage of people, then do what you need to do to take care of yourself. I see another question in the chat box. I love the energy. The question is, what's your number one tip for when you notice you're in a moment of fear or panic? What do you recommend doing? Well, that is another awesome question. It totally depends. You're going to hate that answer. So I had a client who was panicking this weekend, and I wasn't able to get to her right away. I was like trapped in the back of Target where I couldn't get phone reception. So I was texting with her as best as possible, and I was asking her to answer math questions until I could get outside to where I could return her phone call. So in that instance, the best that I could do to help support her was to give her a task to do that moved her into her rational mind instead of her focusing on the fact that her panic was growing. So even though she was having a hard time and she said, but I suck at math, I just said, stay with me, I'm here with you, I'm gonna get there as soon as I can. And I just kept sending her math questions, and it really didn't matter whether she got them right or wrong. It just was important that she was given something else to focus on. So shifting your focus to something really rational or logical and taking really deep breaths, those are two really good go-tos. And also, if you have something available to you that you can inhale that has a really powerful, pleasant, would be helpful, fragrance or odor, it can help recapture the mind so that you're not so flooded in your amygdala. Having an amygdala hijack, we call panic, happens in the amygdala. So I hope that that is a helpful answer. There are so many answers though, and that's certainly another topic that I can do all on its own in another YouTube live. So thank you for the question. So just to recap, we're talking about fear of the unknown. We're getting some great questions. I really love the interaction, and we're talking about some of the things that happen to us when we're uncertain, and that includes not having the energy to take care of ourselves, panic, and those kinds of things. So to recap, when we're feeling uncertain, I want you to get clear about what's creating your anxiety. I want you to take action where you can, and I want you to face your issue instead of avoiding it, because when we avoid it, it piles up and it just gets worse. The thoughts in our mind pile up, the problem grows because we're not resolving it. So the third thing is, I really want you to take very good care of yourself when you're in a state of change or in a state of uncertainty, because the body is really experiencing stress, and that's real. The central nervous system is experiencing a stress response, the brain is experiencing a stress response, and that calls for extra care for ourselves. I'm noticing a comment in the chat box, and it says, I think a lot of small businesses are pretty fearful about the future and our U.S. economy here. And yes, I live in the United States, and I totally agree with, I think that's Scott, that there is a lot of fear about business and what's going on. We're in an election cycle right now, and there's a lot of rhetoric and dialogue going on out there. And so some of these things that we're talking about today are absolutely crucial. Get clear about the action steps you can take to eliminate the uncertainty. You can't control who's going to get elected. You can't control, what the stocks are going to do. I wish I had a better word to use than that. There's a lot of things that are outside of your control, but you can control, especially if you're a small business owner or even an employee. You can control things like making sure you're maximizing your potential or your opportunity to create a revenue stream. So that might mean, if you're a business owner, hiring a strategist or a coach and really getting clarity on opportunities that you might be missing or things that you can do more of, because when we're inside the box looking out, we typically can't see if we're focusing too much attention in one place or another, and a lot of times we're not being as efficient as possible. So if you're a business owner, I can't say enough about having a coach. I have one, a strategist. She supports me, she guides me, she keeps me abreast of what the cutting edge innovations are, like YouTube Live, and helps me to connect with you guys, my audience, so that I can be the best me that I can. So if you are a business owner or an employee that's uncertain, definitely ask for help and to take action where you can. And there's another statement in the chat box. Someone who spoke with her sister in Germany about the show today, and she's mentioning that in Germany there's a lot of fear about change, where here in America sometimes we see opportunity in change. And that's a really good point, is that a lot of times culturally there is, this is just one woman's opinion, okay? So culturally speaking, especially when it's a very closed culture, there is a lot of emphasis placed on maintaining things the way they are. And so uncertainty can create even higher levels of stress or unrest when it's a closed culture, because there's higher resistance to change. And that's really what we're talking about today, is learning how to lean into the discomfort of change, as Brene Brown would say, lean into the discomfort, and accept that change is going to happen. We can certainly, keep things that are close to our heart with us, but when we're resisting reality, meaning resisting the fact that change is inevitable, it's just going to increase the conflict inside of us and make it harder and harder and harder to cope with. And it's going to create a greater disconnect between us and the people around us. So sometimes that's when culturally or any closed group where it sometimes can become really contentious, or we see acting out, and I'm not specifically speaking to Germany, let me please be clear about that, but any particular closed group, sometimes we see aggressive behavior because they want to protect their culture, whatever that culture is, and they don't want to be influenced by anything outside. So that's just something to be aware of. If you are a part of a closed culture, know that your stress level is probably going to be higher, and you may not even realize you're part of a closed culture. Your family system can be a closed culture. Your place of religious worship could be a closed culture. Your political affiliation could be a closed culture. You could be living somewhere in a very, very small town, and that could be a closed culture. So to be aware of cultural influences is really valuable in understanding how we interpret uncertainty or change in our lives. So I hope I've spoken to Dagmar's statement about change in other cultures. So I want you to make sure that when you're experiencing uncertainty or change, that you're taking really good care of yourself. A lot of those deep breaths, I just took one now because I'm starting to get a little fast-paced, and so I'm going to do it now. Take a deep breath and just let go of some of the tension that builds up in the body. Making sure you're getting extra rest, making sure you're getting adequate nutrition, making sure you're taking adequate breaths, because breath is the source of life, and it's the thing that allows the central nervous system to be at peace. There's science behind that. It's called the polyvagal system. That's a whole nother chat. So making sure you're really taking care of yourself to deal with change and uncertainty. The final thing that I want to mention about how to cope with the unknown is how to practice being at peace, even when things are uncertain and even when we are feeling really fearful. And the way to practice being at peace is to continue to put positive information into our minds and to really practice doing this little thing. Keep my head where my feet are. And I know you can't see my feet. If you did, you'd see they were barefoot right now. But that means keeping your mind where your body is in this moment in time, not letting my mind go however far out into the future where I can't control. So keeping my head where my feet are means staying in this moment in time. So to do that, if we're going to practice that right now, then I would say, okay, right now I am in the office and I'm talking to the viewers of this video. I'm feeling a little nervous. I'm going to feel my feet on the floor and my hands, and I'm going to notice what I smell. Air freshener from Green Spoon Aromatherapy. I'm going to notice what I hear. I hear the fish tank behind the camera. I can notice what I see. I see the camera lens. I see the chat box behind me, and I'm grounded here in this moment. And right now, I'm mostly here with myself. I'm barely even with you guys, believe it or not, because I've really focused on, okay, I'm right here in this moment. And that's one of the best ways to deal with uncertainties, and I'm going to come back to you guys, is to practice staying grounded in the moment. And when I'm grounded in the moment, right here in this space, nothing bad is happening. I suppose if I were bleeding from an artery, that would be bad in this moment, and I would want to get out of here. But generally speaking, if I'm grounded in the moment, I can really notice that I'm okay, and nothing really bad is happening in this moment. We might be afraid that something bad is going to happen. We might remember something bad that happened in the past. We might know that something outside of this room is happening with somebody else that we don't like, but that doesn't mean that actually in this moment that anything really bad is happening. I know that there are painful things going on out there. That's real. But I'm safe right now. And if you're watching this video right now, I'm guessing that you're safe right now also. That doesn't mean that there aren't risks in your life. That doesn't mean there aren't risks in my life. But as long as we are here and breathing and functioning and have our faculties, then we can get okay, even if we don't perceive that we're okay. I'm noticing some action in the chat box. How can you hold this moment? How can you stay in peace and not just right in this moment? So, great question. So just the way you watched me take hold of the moment and go inward and really absorb what was happening for me in the moment, the more I practice that, the more it becomes a natural state of being rather than our tendency to go, 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 go. Our minds are the thing that go faster than anything. You know, I could sit down, I could plop down right here, right now, and I could stop my body, but my mind would probably keep going. So the more I practice slowing my mind, the more that I create that as a habit, the more I can carry that peaceful sensation with me. And if I find that I'm stepping out of that peaceful sensation, I can step back into it more easily because it's become more habitual. So that's the part where this process takes practice. Just watching this video is not enough to be coping with the unknown. You have to practice the strategies that are embedded inside of it in order for them to become habitual so that you can feel more peaceful in your life. And that's where it's really helpful to have someone to guide you through that and to remind you when it's time to practice some strategies and which ones to practice. So I hope I answered the question about staying in the moment, but it's about creating healthier habits that you can carry with you so that peace becomes more prevalent than chaos. So we're talking about fear of the unknown. We've spoken about so many amazing things today, but 4 specific strategies. Identify your stressor and change what you can, which might involve asking for help and hiring a really effective coach or doctor or support system. Face your issue head on instead of avoiding it or panicking. Take really good care of yourself. You deserve it. You are worth it. And if you are in a place of uncertainty, Your body and your mind need it. So please take good care of yourself. And number 4 is to practice being at peace. Practice meaning make a healthy habit of it, even when it's chaotic. And know that, just like Scott mentioned in the chat box, that change is inevitable. So get comfortable with it. Start to see change and uncertainty as an adventure, and turn your fear of the future into embracing the idea that the unknown is the great adventure. It's life. Embrace it. And so with that, I thank you so much for everybody's activity today in the chat box and joining me wherever you are, whatever time it is. I'm grateful to have you join me on this video. I love your questions. Please be sure to hit a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you can get updates about other times that I'll be live or when I post other videos. And if you are looking for a coach or a strategist, I can be that person, even if you're not where I am. My coach lives in another part of the state, and some of my closest supporters live in Europe. So no matter where you are, I can come to you, and we can find solutions to your problems. So find me on my website, dawnwigginstherapy.com. Sign up for an on-the-house consult. That's a free consult where we can get to know each other a little better and find a path to solutions in your life. And be sure to sign up for my newsletter, where you can get a weekly message from me in your inbox and help you keep that positive input going into your mind. Thank you so much for the positive feedback. I am grateful to you, and have a beautiful day.